Today we're going to focus on the element of art known as shape. Artists use shapes throughout their artwork, whether that be to create balance or movement, pattern, or rhythm. We're going to be inspired by what we see these artists doing and use that inspiration to create our own work of art. Let's start with the station of cardboard printing. We're familiar with this because we did this when we did our line study. Write your name on your paper, flip your paper over, and then decide if you want your paper to be vertical or horizontal. You're going to need to pick one color and get one piece of cardboard. To create your print, dip your cardboard in the paint, press the cardboard down, and pick it back up. That is a print. Don't press your cardboard down and move the cardboard around. That's painting. As I'm printing, I'm creating a series of squares. I'm making the shape of a square. You can also use the shape of a triangle to enhance what it is you're creating. Inspired by the artist Paul Klee, let's try our own hand at creating castles. You can see his work of art on the right-hand side. It's called Castle and Sun, where he's used large and small shapes of rectangles, squares, and triangles to make his work of art. So let's use that as our inspiration. Now that I have my castle complete, I'm using lines to maybe create a flagpole for my castle, adding flags to the top, and then using the printing to create patterns inside of my squares. Maybe shapes like a triangle, maybe horizontal or vertical lines. It's up to you. Now let's create a design with radial balance. Take a look at the stained glass window. You'll notice that there's a circle in the center and then lines coming away from it or radiating away from it, almost as if somebody drew a sun with lines coming away from it. Those radiating lines are creating a radial balance, which is what I'm also doing now on my star. I started with a shape in the center. It doesn't have to be a circle. And now I'm picking shapes that are radiating or coming away from the center. And you'll notice that all of the shapes are the same. This isn't a random pattern. This is a pattern with radial balance, with all shapes coming from the center. Now let's create a collage. You're going to need to pick 5 geometric shapes for your collage. When you cut these shapes, do so slowly and carefully, trying to stay on your line. Geometric shapes are the ones that you learn about in art class. Circles, squares, rectangles, and triangles, hearts, and stars. These are not the same shapes as the ones you would see out in nature. Those shapes are called organic shapes, like the shape of a cloud or a leaf. Pick out 5 geometric shapes, cut them out, and then glue them down. Once you're finished with that, why don't we try our hand at overlapping some of those shapes with even more shapes with some stamping. When you're stamping, it helps to twirl the sponge stamp in the paint and then check it to make sure that it's covered in paint, and then gently press on the shape just 2 times and it will give you a great print. Sometimes you don't even have to get more paint. This is a sponge after all, and a sponge does absorb or soak up the paint, so you shouldn't have to get more. Your final step is to go ahead and then stamp it with a circle. Now let's explore with some tissue paper shapes. The first thing you're going to do is spray your paper with water just a couple of times, enough to get the surface or the top of the paper shiny. Then you can use a variety of bleeding tissue paper shapes. I have a lot of geometric shapes like circles, squares, triangles, and diamonds. Once you have your shapes in place, remember to always take a break and spray more water on top. If you remember, you have to put water on the bottom of your paper and then water on top of the tissue paper, creating almost what I call a water tissue paper water sandwich. As the paper starts to bleed or mix colors, those shapes that were once geometric are going to become a little bit more organic. We'll have to wait until next time to see what it looks like.